Marisol Green stepped off the school bus and felt a small thrill of excitement. She loved walking up the brick path to her family's pale yellow house on Maple Street. The late afternoon light shone warmly on the white columns of the porch, and she could almost taste her mother's cooking already. She tightened the straps of her backpack and waved at Mrs. Franklin across the street, who was watering her flower beds. Everything felt peaceful and safe. Marisol unlocked the front door and pushed it open. She slipped inside and called, "Hi, Mom." Her voice echoed a little in the tidy foyer. Soft music drifted from the living room, so she left her shoes by the door and padded through the hallway. The wooden floors felt cool under her socks. She paused at the entrance to the living room, expecting to see her mother's familiar figure chopping vegetables at the kitchen counter. Instead, she saw her family's housekeeper, Rosa, moving around a small gathering of people. Rosa had worked for the Greenes for nearly 3 years. She was caring and gentle, always cheerful in her blue uniform, with a soft accent that made her smile even warmer. Today she was wearing dark jeans and a pink blouse. She moved gracefully as she balanced a tray of cookies and lemonade, offering refreshments to her own family. Rosa's teenage son, Javier, leaned against the edge of the couch, scrolling on his phone. His cousin, Bella, sat beside him, arms folded tightly, her face set in a frown. A younger boy, Miguel, played with a small toy car on the coffee table, occasionally sneaking glances at Marisol. Marisol stepped forward and tried to smile. "Hi, Rosa." She kept her voice friendly even though something felt off. Rosa looked up, surprised, and returned the greeting. "Hello, Marisol. Welcome home." She placed the tray on the glass table and tucked a loose strand of hair behind her ear. Marisol noticed Bella's eyes narrow and Javier glance away quickly. Marisol moved to take a glass of lemonade, but Bella reached out and pulled the cup toward her. "No, that's ours," Bella said, her voice low but firm. She handed the glass to Miguel with a small, triumphant smile. "Drink up, hermano." Marisol's heart sank. She took a step back. "Oh, I was just..." She glanced toward Rosa, hoping for help. Rosa was busy straightening cushions on the couch and did not notice the exchange. Marisol forced a bright smile. "Thanks anyway." She turned and walked past them toward the hallway that led to the kitchen. She could feel Bella's eyes on her back, along with Javier's mocking half-smile. Marisol tried to ignore it, but her cheeks warmed and her throat tightened. In the hallway, Marisol paused and pressed her palm against the smooth wall. She could still hear the muffled laughter from the living room. Her fingers trembled slightly. She could turn back and find her mother, but she felt embarrassed to be seen crying. She took a deep breath. Below the narrow staircase, a small window overlooked the back porch. Marisol stepped closer and pressed her forehead against the cool glass. Outside, she could see the neat garden where her mother grew herbs and tomatoes. The sight calmed her a little. She closed her eyes and counted slowly to 5, then opened them again. Behind her, Rosa's family atmosphere shifted. Rosa's cousin leaned closer to Javier, whispering something. Javier snickered and looked at the window where Marisol stood. Marisol felt his gaze and shivered. She turned away and shuffled down the hallway. At the end of the hall was the kitchen entrance. The air smelled of garlic and simmering tomatoes. Marisol peeked inside. Her mother, Elaine, stood by the counter stirring a pot of sauce. She hummed softly, her dark hair tied back in a ponytail. She looked up when she heard Marisol's footsteps. "Hey, sweetheart," Elaine said, wiping her hands on her apron. "How was school?" Marisol managed a small smile. "Good. I'm thirsty." She stepped in and closed the distance between them. Elaine poured water into a tall glass and handed it to her daughter. Marisol wrapped her hands around the cool glass and took a sip. Elaine studied Marisol's face. "Are you okay? You look a bit pale." Marisol hesitated. She glanced back down the hallway, towards the living room. I just missed you." She gave a quick, unconvincing smile. Before Elaine could ask more, Rosa appeared in the doorway between the living room and kitchen. She carried an empty tray and wore an apologetic look on her face. "Elaine, I'm sorry to bring my family today without checking with you first," Rosa said quietly. "I thought a small visit while I waited for my shift would be fine." Elaine set her spoon down and offered Rosa a gentle smile. "It's okay, Rosa. They're always welcome here." She turned to Marisol. "Rosa's family is here for a short visit. Why don't you go say hello?" Marisol's throat tightened. Again, she shook her head. "That's okay, Mom. I'm fine." She forced a laugh. "Maybe later." Rosa paused, looking between Elaine and Marisol. She seemed to sense something was wrong but didn't press. She nodded and slipped back into the living room, where her son and cousin still lounged on the couch. Marisol felt a pang of guilt. Rosa had been like family to her. She swallowed hard, took another sip of water, and glanced back at the pot. On the stove, the sauce bubbled gently. She could help her mother, at least. "Do you need help with anything?" she asked Elaine, raising the glass in her hand. Elaine smiled, relieved. "Yes, thank you. Could you chop those carrots over there?" She pointed to a cutting board by the sink where two bright orange carrots lay. Marisol set her water on the counter and washed her hands. She picked up the knife with care and began to slice the carrots into thin rounds as Marisol worked. Elaine reached over and patted her hand. "You're a good helper," she said softly. "Thank you." Marisol felt a small glow inside. She looked across the counter and saw her mother's warm eyes. The noise from the living room faded into the background. She took a deep breath and focused on the rhythm of chopping. The carrots fell neatly onto the board, one by one. Suddenly, a loud crash came from the living room. Plates clattered, and a harsh voice rang out. Marisol's chest tightened. She glanced across at her mother, who stiffened. "Are you okay?" Elaine whispered. Marisol nodded, her eyes wide. I think they knocked something over." Elaine set down her spoon and motioned for Marisol to stay by the counter. She stepped toward the hallway, every bit of her motherly instinct on high alert. Marisol watched her mother's figure disappear, then felt a wave of worry for Rosa. Despite the teasing earlier, Marisol cared for the woman who helped her family every day. She placed the knife down and slipped off her stool. She followed Elaine into the hallway. They reached the living room doorway together. Marisol peered around the frame. The tray of cookies had fallen to the floor. The cookies rolled across the rug, crumbs scattered like tiny stars. Rosa's cousin, Bella, stood bent over, staring at the mess with a look of shock. Javier leaned back on the couch, his phone forgotten on his lap. Miguel crouched beside the fallen tray, picking up a cookie piece. Rosa stood in the center of the room, her face pale but composed. She held a clean towel in her hands. She took a deep breath and knelt to help Bella pick up the broken tray. "It's okay," she said gently. "We'll manage." Marisol felt her heart flutter. She stepped forward and said, "Do you need help, Rosa?" Rosa's eyes lit up at Marisol's offer. She smiled, soft and grateful. "Thank you," she said. "Could you gather the cookies into this bowl?" She pointed to a glass bowl on the coffee table. Marisol crossed the room and bent down to help. As she scooped up the scattered treats, she noticed Bella's shoulders slumping. Javier's gaze fixed on Rosa with new regard. Even Miguel had paused in his game long enough to watch them. In that moment, Marisol realized things could change quickly. She looked at Rosa, who was carefully mopping the juice that spilled on the rug. Rosa's skirt was damp, and her blouse clung to her skin, but she worked without complaint, focused on making things right. Marisol finished gathering the cookies and set the bowl before Rosa. Rosa rested her hand briefly on Marisol's shoulder. "Thank you, Carico," she whispered. Marisol felt a warmth spread through her chest. She met her mother's eyes. Elaine nodded just enough for Marisol to understand. She was proud, in simple words. The silence in the room said more than any speech could. They stood together, a small family forged not by blood, but by respect, kindness, and the choice to help one another at exactly the right moment. Marisol woke the next morning feeling a little nervous. She remembered how yesterday her house had almost felt like two different worlds. In one moment she had been pushed aside, and in the next she had helped Rosa pick up broken cookies. Now, she wondered what today would bring. She slipped out of bed before the sun came up, careful not to wake her mother. In her room, she looked at the small picture on her nightstand. It showed her and Rosa smiling side by side at last year's summer fair. Marisol touched the frame with a soft smile. Thinking how much she cared for Rosa, she tiptoed down the hallway and found Rosa in the kitchen, quietly making coffee and humming a gentle tune. The stove's soft hiss and the warm smell of coffee made Marisol feel safe. She stepped in and whispered, "Good morning," but Rosa still looked sad. Yesterday's event had weighed on her mind. Rosa set down the coffee pot and turned to Marisol with tired eyes. "Buenos dias, Carico," she said softly. "Are you really okay, Marisol?" Marisol nodded, though her heart fluttered. "Yes, I did not want things to be strange." She pushed her hair back and tried to stand tall. Rosa smiled, then reached out to hug her. The warmth of Rosa's arms chased away Marisol's last worries. "We will make it right," Rosa said. "But today, Let us be careful. Elaine came down the stairs, rubbing her eyes. She smiled when she saw them together. Morning, chicas, she said. She poured a glass of orange juice for Marisol and offered Rosa a cup of coffee. Elaine sensed the tension between Rosa's family and her own daughter. She cleared her throat. I thought we could all have breakfast together, she said. Let's sit at the big table. Marisol slid a chair back and sat beside Rosa. Across from her, at one end of the table, sat Javier on his phone, looking bored. Beside him was Bella, poking at her eggs and rolling her eyes. Miguel sat quietly next to the table leg, tapping his foot. Marisol felt her throat dry. It seemed as if Rosa's family had come to the house only to test her again. She took a breath and focused on her mother's warm smile. Elaine ladled scrambled eggs onto everyone's plates, careful to give each child a fair portion. Rosa told me yesterday that Javier has a big soccer game today, she said brightly. Good luck, Javier. I'll be cheering for you. Javier glanced up, surprised. Thanks, Mrs. Green, he mumbled, glancing down at his plate. Bella frowned, but Miguel gave a small nod of thanks. Marisol felt a thread of hope. They ate in silence for a moment, the clinking of cutlery sounding loud in the kitchen. Then Rosa turned to her children. After breakfast, I need to go to work, she said. You are welcome to stay here until school. She looked at Marisol. Maybe you two can do homework together. Marisol brightened. Yes, I have math worksheets we can share. Rosa smiled and nodded. Javier sighed and closed his phone. Fine, he said quietly. Bella rolled her eyes but did not protest. Elaine finished pouring coffee for herself and Rosa. She patted Marisol's hand. I have some paperwork to do, she said. I'll be upstairs if you need me. Marisol watched her mother leave, then turned to her homework. She spread her papers on the kitchen island and started writing numbers on the page. Rosa sat beside her, and they worked together in a companionable silence. Javier and Bella drifted to the living room with their own books. Bella flopped onto the couch and pretended to read, but she kept glancing toward the kitchen. Javier sat at the small desk by the window, flicking through his math notes. Every now and then he looked up and watched Marisol and Rosa. Miguel sat on the floor, quietly stacking blocks near the coffee table. Marisol finished one math problem and tapped the pencil against her lips. I don't understand long division, she said, pointing at the numbers. Rosa leaned over, took the pencil, and drew arrows. She explained each step in simple words. Marisol nodded, absorbing every detail. When she solved the problem correctly, Rosa gave her a thumbs up. Muy bien, Rosa said softly. Marisol beamed. She glanced at Bella, who watched them both with a neutral face. An hour later, the school bus honked outside. Marisol packed her bag, and Rosa gathered her children's backpacks. Miguel scooped up his blocks and dashed to the door. Bye, Mimi, he called to Marisol. Marisol laughed and waved. See you after school, Miguel. She followed him out the door. Bella closed the front door behind them and paused. She turned to Marisol and hesitated. Marisol's heart thumped. She waited, hoping for something good, but Bella only said, Don't think I forgot yesterday. Her voice was low and steady. Then she walked off toward the bus stop with Javier. Marisol's smile faded. She watched them disappear round the corner. The bus's yellow paint shone in the morning sun as it drove away. Marisol closed her eyes, blinked back tears, and took a deep breath. Inside the house, Marisol followed Rosa back in. Rosa set down her children's bags and looked at Marisol's face. What did she say? Rosa asked. Marisol sighed. She said she did not forget how I helped yesterday. She said. She sounded angry. Rosa laid a gentle hand on her shoulder. It will be okay, she said. You did the right thing. Marisol nodded but felt a knot in her chest. Rosa led Marisol back to the kitchen table. She pulled out a fresh notebook and colorful markers. Let us draw, Rosa suggested. When we are nervous, drawing helps. Marisol straightened the paper and selected a pink marker. She drew a bright sun, a green tree, and two children. Holding hands, Rosa smiled. Look, she said, even the sun is shining on friendship. Marisol felt warmth spread in her chest. She drew a small pool under the tree. Remembering her near fall, she added a figure diving in to save a friend. Rosa nodded. Yes, you are the brave friend. They drew together for a while, sharing stories about the shapes they made. Then they heard the mail slot click. Marisol ran to see a letter on the floor. It was addressed to Elaine. Marisol picked it up and saw the official school seal. Rosa's eyes widened. That is likely permission for Javier, she said. He tried out for the soccer team last week. Rosa hurried to sort through the stack, looking for a matching envelope. Marisol watched her, feeling curious. Finally, Rosa found a smaller envelope addressed to Javier. She handed both letters to Marisol and said, "You could give them to your mother. I have work soon." Marisol tucked the letters into her backpack and smiled at Rosa. "Thank you," she said. She hurried upstairs to find her mother. In Elaine's study, papers covered the desk. Elaine was on the phone, speaking softly. Marisol waited until her mother said, "Thank you, Anna," and hung up. Elaine turned and saw Marisol holding the envelopes. "What's this?" she asked. Marisol held them out. "Mail for you, and for Javier," she said. Elaine opened her letter and read the first lines. Her brow furrowed. Then she opened Javier's and read. Elaine's eyes softened. She folded both letters and put them in her pocket. "Javier made the soccer team," she said. "He must be thrilled." She looked at Marisol. "Thank you for bringing these upstairs." Marisol nodded. Elaine let out a small sigh. "I have to drop these off at Rosa's work," she said. "Would you like to come?" Marisol's heart leapt. "Yes," she said. Elaine smiled, looped her arm through hers, and they went downstairs together. They stepped outside into the cool morning air. The sky was clear, and birds sang in the trees. Marisol held tightly to Elaine's hand. They walked to the local community center where Rosa worked as a cleaning supervisor. The center's red brick walls looked bright against the blue sky. Elaine pushed the door open, and the sound of children's laughter greeted them. Rosa was vacuuming a hallway, her back to them. Her dark hair was pinned up, and her uniform looked neat. Rosa paused, surprised to see Elaine. She dropped the vacuum handle and hurried forward. "Mrs. Green, what brings you here?" she asked. Elaine held up the letters. "You forgot these," she said, smiling, "and I have news about Javier." Rosa's face broke into a proud grin. Marisol stepped forward and handed over the letters. Rosa opened hers and read. Then she opened Javier's. Tears filled Rosa's eyes. She looked up at Elaine and then at Marisol. "He made the team," she whispered. Elaine nodded. "Yes. You have a future star." Rosa turned to Marisol and hugged her fiercely. "Gracias, mi amiga," she said. Marisol hugged her back, feeling a rush of joy round them. Voices in the hall paused, and some children peered curiously. Javier and Bella came running down the stairs at that moment, their backpacks bouncing. They skidded to a stop when they saw Rosa crying with happiness. Bella's eyes softened. She stepped forward, her usual frown gone. She whispered, "Congratulations, Gio." Rosa smiled and ruffled Bella's hair. Javier thanked Elaine and Marisol. He looked at his letter again, then at Marisol. "Thanks," he said quietly. "If you hadn't delivered this..." He trailed off. Marisol shrugged and smiled. "I'm happy you made it," she said. Elaine wrapped an arm around Rosa's shoulders. "Let's celebrate," she said. "How about lunch at the greenhouse this weekend?" Rosa's eyes lit up. "I would love that." Bella and Javier exchanged looks, and Miguel clapped his hands. Even Bella gave a small smile. As they left the center, Marisol walked between Elaine and Rosa. She felt a lightness inside her. Problems would come again, she knew that. But in that moment, she understood something true. When people see each other's hearts, when they share kindness and care, they can change how they feel, and sometimes, a simple act like bringing a letter can open a door to something new and good. Marisol woke to the gentle buzz of her alarm and lay still for a moment, listening to the quiet house. The morning light spilled through her curtains in soft gold stripes. She stretched and slipped out of bed, feeling a mix of excitement and nervousness. Today was Wednesday, the day Rosa's family and Elaine had planned their joint lunch. Marisol could hardly wait to see how everyone would get along now that the soccer news had lifted the mood. Downstairs, she found Elaine at the kitchen counter, chopping green peppers for a salad. The kitchen smelled of fresh vegetables and garlic. Elaine turned at the sound of footsteps and smiled. "Good morning, sweetheart," she said, moving aside to let Marisol pour her cereal. "Did you sleep well?" Marisol nodded, spoon halfway to her mouth. "Yes, I'm ready for lunch later." She ate quickly, her mind already on the afternoon plans. As she finished, she heard the front door open and the soft click of Rosa's heels on the porch. Rosa came in carrying a small package and hugged Marisol warmly. "Buenos dias," she said. "I brought these napkins I found at the market. They have little flowers on them." Marisol admired the pretty cloth napkins and thanked her. Soon Javier and Bella arrived in the kitchen, yawning and rubbing their eyes. Javier gave Marisol a quick nod and went to get a glass of juice. Bella offered a sideways glance but said, "Nice napkins." She sounded polite, not cold. Miguel raced in last, his hair in messy spikes, and ran to hug his mother. Rosa tousled his hair and laughed. "Calm down, little one," she teased as she set the package on the counter. Elaine poured coffee for Rosa and orange juice for the children. "I thought we could meet at the park pavilion for lunch," she said. "It's not far, just a 10-minute walk." She looked at each of them. "Does that work?" Everyone agreed, and soon they were heading out together. Marisol linked arms with Rosa, and Elaine held Bella's hand. Javier and Miguel walked ahead, talking softly about their day. The sun shone brightly, and a gentle breeze rustled the leaves as they walked. Elaine and Rosa chatted about the upcoming neighborhood fair, while Marisol listened, her heart light. They arrived at the small park where a wooden pavilion stood by a compound. Ducks glided on the water, and the grass smelled sweet. Elaine spread a checkered blanket on the table and brought out containers of salad, sandwiches, and fruit. Rosa unpacked her vegetable quiche and guacamole dip. Marisol helped lay out the plates. Even Bella offered to pass the sandwiches, and Javier poured juice for everyone. As they ate, the conversation flowed easily. Elaine asked Rosa how work had been. Rosa spoke about new cleaning schedules at the community center. Javier added details about his first soccer practice. Bella talked, surprisingly, about a book she was reading for school. Miguel giggled and told a funny story about a squirrel stealing his cookie. Marisol found herself laughing and feeling warm inside. It felt like a real family gathering. After lunch, Elaine suggested they all play a game of frisbee on the grass. Rosa and Elaine cleared space, and soon they were tossing the frisbee back and forth. Marisol chased after it with Rosa. Javier and Bella stood nearby, watching, until Bella surprised them by stepping forward to catch a throw. She tossed it back with a small grin. Javier cheered for her, and Bella laughed, her serious mask cracking. Marisol and Rosa teamed up against Elaine and Miguel. The game grew lively, but never rough. They tumbled and ran, their laughs echoing in the bright afternoon. At one point, Marisol ran too fast and tripped. She fell forward, scraping her knee on the grass. Before she could cry out, Rosa scooped her into her arms. "Careful, Carico," Rosa said, brushing the grass from Marisol's clothes. Rosa reached into her pocket and pulled out a small packet of wipes. "Here," she said, cleaning the scrape gently. Marisol felt safe in Rosa's arms. She nodded bravely as Rosa cleaned her knee. Then she turned and saw Elaine holding out a sandwich, and even Bella looked concerned. Javier knelt beside her, offering a juice box. Marisol smiled, took the juice, and finished her game with Rosa. The small fall only made the moment sweeter, reminding her how much everyone cared. When the frisbee finally landed in a tree, and no one could reach it, they sat on the grass and chatted about school projects and neighborhood news. Bella and Marisol discovered they both enjoyed drawing cartoons. Bella showed a sketch of a funny mouse wearing a crown. Marisol giggled and drew a quick picture of a dancing cat. They compared their drawings, and Bella offered some tips on shading. Marisol felt proud that Bella wanted to share her skill. Javier, curious, asked Marisol and Bella if they wanted to help him with the mural at school. He explained that the art teacher had asked volunteers to paint a small wall behind the auditorium. Bella's eyes sparkled, and Marisol felt a thrill. "I'd love to," Marisol said. Bella shrugged and smiled. "Me too." Even Javier grinned. After a while, they packed up and walked home, chatting excitedly about the mural project. Marisol walked between Elaine and Rosa, holding both their hands. Bella walked beside her quietly, and Javier carried the frisbee. Miguel skipped ahead, picking flowers for his mother. Back at the greenhouse, Marisol waved goodbye to Rosa's family as they boarded the bus for school. "See you tomorrow," she called to Miguel, who waved a small bouquet of wildflowers. Bella and Javier waved too. Marisol's heart swelled with happiness. Elaine hugged her daughter and kissed her forehead. "I'm proud of you," she said softly. Marisol spent the rest of the afternoon doing homework and drawing her mural ideas. She drew a big tree with colorful birds and smiling faces. At dinner, she told Elaine about the mural plan. Elaine smiled and said, "I know you'll make it beautiful." Marisol beamed. That night, as Marisol lay in bed, she thought about the day. The kindness and laughter had felt like magic after the bullying of days before. But she also knew that people could change quickly, for better or worse. She resolved to be brave and kind, just like Rosa, Elaine, and now even Bella and Javier. With that thought, she drifted to sleep, ready for whatever tomorrow would bring. Marisol woke before dawn again, her mind buzzing with ideas for the mural and memories of the fun afternoon. But today felt different. A quiet worry settled in her chest when she thought of Rosa's family visiting again. Would things stay friendly, or would old tension return? She rose slowly, dressed in soft pajamas, and padded downstairs. In the kitchen, Elaine was already at the counter, arranging fruit slices in a dish. She looked up and smiled when she saw Marisol. "Morning, love," she said. "Sleep well." Marisol nodded, trying to hide her nerves. Elaine set a plate of strawberries and bananas before her. "Eat first," she said. "We'll talk in a bit." Marisol ate slowly, savoring the sweet fruit. A knock sounded at the door. Rosa stepped in, her dark hair held back with a clip, carrying a small wooden box. She greeted Elaine with a warm hug, then turned to Marisol. "Buenos dias," she said softly. "I have something for you." She set the box on the table and opened it. Inside lay bright glass beads on a string. "I made this bracelet last night," Rosa explained. "It has colors of friendship. I would like you to wear it." Marisol's eyes filled with gratitude. "Thank you," she whispered. She slipped the bracelet onto her wrist and felt a gentle warmth. Just then, Javier and Bella arrived, sleepy-eyed but polite. Bella glanced at Marisol's new bracelet and nodded. "Nice colors," she said quietly. Javier gave a small thumbs up. Miguel bounded in last, waving a small stuffed bear. He handed it to Marisol. "For you," he said, grinning. Marisol laughed. "Thank you, Miguel." She hugged the bear and kissed his cheek. The small gestures made her heart swell. Elaine suggested they all walk to school together. Since Rosa's children only lived a few blocks away, the morning air was cool, and the sun shone faintly through light clouds. Marisol walked beside Rosa, chatting about the mural. Rosa listened, her eyes bright. Behind them, Bella and Javier walked in silence, and Miguel raced ahead, his laughter ringing. At the school gate, they paused. Marisol hugged each of Rosa's children. "See you after school," she said. Bella managed a small smile. Javier gave a wave. Then they all parted ways. Marisol watched them go, feeling both hope and worry. She turned toward her own classroom, took a deep breath, and stepped inside. The morning lessons passed quickly. In art class, Marisol's teacher, Miss Patel, asked the students to sketch anything that made them happy. Marisol drew the friendship bracelet and the glass beads. She showed it to her friend, Lily, who said, "It's beautiful." Marisol felt proud and thought about how that bracelet reminded her of kindness overcoming hurt. At lunch, Marisol joined Lily and another classmate at a table. They talked about science homework and weekend plans. Marisol answered Lily's questions about the mural, and Lily offered to help gather paint. Marisol smiled, grateful for her friend's support. She felt lighter than she had in days. After school, Marisol hurried home. She noticed Bella and Javier waiting by the tree near the greenhouse. Bella's arms were crossed, and Javier held a soccer ball. Marisol's stomach tightened. She waved, but Bella looked away. Javier saw her and tossed the ball lightly toward her. It bounced past Marisol's feet. He retrieved it and offered it to her. "Want to kick it around?" he asked. His tone was friendly. Marisol blinked, then nodded. They kicked the ball back and forth in the front yard. Bella joined in. After a moment, and even Miguel ran outside, squealing with delight. Elaine came out to watch, smiling. Marisol laughed as the ball rolled between her legs and she chased after it. For a while, the game was just a game, no memories of bullying, only the joy of play. When the sun began to sink low, they returned to the porch. Rosa stepped out with cold lemonade in cups. Elaine brought out cookies on a plate. They all sat on the porch steps, sipping and munching. Marisol noticed Bella holding her cup and looking at the bracelet. At last Bella said, "I'm sorry about yesterday." She looked at Marisol's wrist. "I shouldn't have said that." Marisol's heart lifted. "Thank you," she replied. "It's okay." Rosa reached over and ruffled Bella's hair. Gently. "We are all learning," she said. "Kindness helps us grow." Bella nodded. Javier took a sip of lemonade and said, "I was wrong before, too. Thanks for delivering the letter." Marisol smiled at him. "I'm glad I could help." Miguel bounded from the bushes and jumped onto Marisol's lap. "Mimi, play hide and seek," he demanded. Marisol laughed softly. "Okay." She stood and covered her eyes. "Ready or not?" "Here I come." The children sprang away to hide. Marisol counted slowly, then looked around the yard. She spotted Miguel behind the potted fern and called, Found you. He giggled and ran back. Next, she discovered Bella crouched behind a tree, blinking in surprise when Marisol called her name. Javier hid behind a trash can by the garage. Marisol pretended not to see him until he popped out with a laugh. Even Elaine and Rosa joined in, making the game lively and full of laughter. After the game, they all settled on the grass. Elaine produced paper and markers. Let's draw our favorite moments of today, she suggested. Marisol drew the bracelet and the children playing hide-and-seek. Rosa drew the soccer practice and their walk home. Bella sketched the tree and the lemonade brewing on the porch. Javier drew a small soccer goal and ball. Miguel drew himself giggling behind the fern. They shared their drawings, and each picture told a story of friendship and change. As the day turned into evening, Jillian's father, Mr. Green, came home and joined them. He greeted everyone warmly, offering handshakes and smiles. He listened as Rosa and Elaine talked about tomorrow's plan to start painting the mural. On the school wall, Mr. Green nodded and said, "That's wonderful. The whole community will love it." He turned to Marisol. "I'm proud of you, darling." Marisol felt her chest swell with pride. She looked at Rosa's family, now relaxed and smiling. Bella leaned against her mother, and Javier kicked the soccer ball in front of him, whistling a tune. Miguel climbed onto Elaine's lap, and everyone sipped the last drops of lemonade. The porch light glowed softly, casting long shadows on the lawn. Later that night, Marisol lay in bed and thought back on the day's events. She had faced her worry and found new friendship. Rosa's family had surprised her with kindness, and even Bella and Javier had changed. She traced the colorful beads on her bracelet and felt a promise of more good days ahead. Marisol closed her eyes and smiled. She was ready for part 5, whatever it would bring. She drifted into sleep, comforted by the memory of sunny laughter, hide-and-seek games, and the bright promise of a mural that would stand as a testament to friendship, courage, and change. Marisol woke to the bright morning sun streaming through her curtains. She sat up and listened to the quiet house. Today was the big day. They would start painting the mural on the school wall. She felt a flutter of excitement in her stomach. She slipped quietly from her bed and padded down the stairs. In the kitchen, Elaine was arranging breakfast. She smiled when she saw Marisol. "Good morning," she said, placing a plate of pancakes and berries in front of her daughter. Marisol smiled back. She felt happy and a little nervous. Today she would help bring to life the painting she and her friends had planned. Rosa arrived a few minutes later, carrying paintbrushes and cans of bright paint. She set them carefully on the table. "Buenos dias, que rico," she said, hugging Marisol. Then she turned to Elaine. "I brought gloves. And rags too," she said. "We'll need them soon." Javier, Bella, and Miguel appeared in the doorway, each carrying something. Javier held a small ladder. Bella had rolled up her sleeves and carried a sketchbook. Miguel bounced in with a big smile, clutching a paint roller almost as tall as he was. Elaine laughed. "You all look ready," she said. They ate breakfast together, talking about the mural's final details. Marisol described the tree with the smiling faces round its branches. Bella showed how she wanted the sun to have rays of different colors. Javier talked about painting the soccer ball under the tree, and Miguel insisted that a tiny duck should swim in the painted pond. Everyone agreed, and they finished their pancakes quickly. After breakfast, they gathered their supplies and walked to the school. The wall stood blank and smooth in the morning light. Miss Patel, the art teacher, met them there with a big smile. "Thank you for doing this," she said. "It will bring so much joy." She handed out paint palettes and brushes. Elaine and Rosa helped the children put on gloves and roll up their sleeves. Marisol stood back for a moment and looked at the empty wall. It felt like a giant canvas waiting for their dreams. She remembered the days of fear and bullying, and she felt grateful for how things had changed. She took a deep breath and picked up a small brush. Bella and Javier started by sketching the outlines in chalk. Bella carefully drew the tree trunk and branches. Javier marked where the faces would go. Marisol knelt and drew the pond at the base. Miguel stood beside her, trying to help, and he spilled a little chalk dust. They laughed, and Marisol wiped him off with her gloved hand. Once the outline was ready, Rosa squeezed paint onto the palettes. The children dipped their brushes and began to fill in color. Marisol painted the sky first, using light blue strokes that blended into white clouds. Bella added pink and yellow tones to the clouds, making them look soft and warm. Javier painted the grass below in bright green, and Miguel carefully rolled yellow paint for the sun. Elaine painted some of the tree trunk with brown, guiding Marisol's hand when the lines got tricky. Miss Patel stepped back and nodded in approval. "Beautiful work," she said. "Keep going." As the morning sun climbed higher, they all worked together. Marisol painted the branches, feeling the brush glide over the wall in soft arcs. She mixed green and red to make the leaves look alive. She painted one little face around, smiling circle with big eyes, feeling proud when she finished. Rosa painted another face next to it, her stroke steady and kind. Javier painted the soccer ball under the tree, adding black and white patches that looked just right. Bella painted the sun's rays in different colors, red, orange, pink, and purple. Miguel painted the duck in the pond with careful dabs of yellow, then added small ripples round it. Elaine wrote the words "Friendship grows here" in bright blue letters above the tree. Marisol stepped back and beamed. It looked just as she had imagined. Around lunchtime, they took a break. Elaine handed out sandwiches and juice boxes. They sat on the grass in front of the wall, admiring their work. "You did amazing," Elaine said, hugging Marisol. "I'm so proud of you." Marisol smiled and turned to Rosa. "Thank you for helping me," she said. Rosa patted her shoulder. "You helped everyone," she said. "You had the idea, and we all brought it to life." After lunch, they returned to painting the smaller details. Marisol added freckles to the painted faces. Bella painted tiny flowers at the base of the tree. Javier added his soccer net behind the ball. Miguel used a small brush to paint the duck's beak. Even Elaine dipped her brush in paint to add a bright butterfly on one branch. As they painted, neighbors walked by and paused to watch. Some stopped and clapped softly, and others smiled and took pictures. By mid-afternoon, the mural was nearly complete. Only a few spots needed touch-ups. Marisol held the small paintbrush and carefully traced the edges of the letters. She felt a soft breeze on her face and the sun's warmth. Her heart felt light. She looked at Bella and Javier, each focused on their own detail. She looked at Miguel, whose face was speckled with tiny drops of green paint. She looked at Rosa and Elaine, smiling proudly at the scene. Finally, Miss Patel said, "It's done." Everyone stepped back. The wall glowed with color. A strong tree with many smiling faces, a bright sun, a calm pond with a little duck, a soccer ball, and the words "Friendship grows here." Marisol felt tears in her eyes. She turned to Rosa, who was wiping her hands with a rag. Rosa's eyes were moist too. Elaine hugged Rosa, then hugged Marisol. Bella, who had been quiet, stepped forward. She said, "I'm sorry for how I acted before. I didn't understand." Marisol shook her head gently and said, "I know. I understand now too." Javier nodded. "I'm glad we did this together," he said. Miguel ran up and hugged Marisol's leg. "Best day ever," he said. Neighbors and teachers and even the school principal began to arrive, praising the mural. The principal, Mr. Anderson, shook everyone's hand. "This is a wonderful gift to our school," he said. "Thank you." Miss Patel invited them all to a small gathering in the library later that week to celebrate. As the sun began to set, they packed up the paint cans and brushes. Marisol looked at the mural one more time. She remembered the day when she felt bullied, when she nearly fell into the pool, when she delivered the letters, and all the days of laughter that followed. She realized how far they had come. People had changed, hearts had opened. That evening, back at home, Marisol sat at her desk and wrote in her journal. She wrote about the mural and how it felt to work together. She wrote about the bracelet Rosa made and the games they played. She wrote about Bella's apology and Javier's kindness. She ended with a promise to always stand up for others, to offer kindness, and to believe in change. When she finished writing, she shut her journal and tucked it away. She looked at the friendship bracelet on her wrist, the beads catching the light. She felt gratitude for Rosa, Elaine, Bella, Javier, Miguel, and everyone who helped make this day special. She climbed into bed and closed her eyes, a soft smile on her lips. In the quiet of her room, Marisol thought of the tree with its smiling faces. She thought of the words "Friendship grows here." She understood now that friendship could grow anywhere, between strangers, between children who once felt fear, between people willing to change. She felt safe, loved, and hopeful. She drifted into sleep, dreaming of bright colors and laughter. And as the night settled on the green home, a sense of peace filled the air, knowing that kindness had won, and that tomorrow held new possibilities for everyone who believed in the power of friendship.